Welcome to another episode of the Empowered Half Hour. And this week I am bringing you a person I'm so thrilled to have a conversation with, because as I was reading over her profile, I was resonating with so much, and I'm not going to allude what that is because we're going to uncover it. But I would love to welcome you to Sam Bennett. She is author of the 15-Minute Method, speaker, and Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Becca. Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Hey.
So let's get into it, because I have been chomping at the bit to talk to you. The 15-minute method. I love things that are clear and short and maybe not easy because you have to do the work, but easy in concept if you do the work.
Correct.
And I feel that's where you take us with the 15-minute method. So I'd like to hear a little bit about the 15-minute method so the listeners can get a sense of what it is. Once we get done talking about that, I want to hear the backstory to how you came up with it.
Yeah, the 15-minute method is subversively simple. Here's the whole idea. I want you and everybody else on the planet to spend 15 minutes every single day on something that matters to you. Boom. That's the whole plan. I don't care if it matters to anybody else. I don't care if anybody else even knows about it. And I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's writing or stretching or sitting in the garden with the sun on your face or reaching out to a friend or keeping your resume up to date so you can go after that big job. I don't know what it is. You tell me. But what I notice is that we spend all day, every day, getting everything done for everybody else.
Yes, ma'am.
And the thing that you know would really make a difference to you is still sitting in a drawer. It doesn't even make it onto the list.
How did you realize that the 15-minute method was something that you could bring forward for people?
I've been beating this drum around the 15 minutes for a long time. It's in the title of my first book from 10 years ago, which is Get It Done from Procrastination to Creative Genius in 15 Minutes a Day, if anybody's curious. Because I work with a lot of overthinkers, highly sensitive people, highly creative people, neurospices of all stripes, they often have fantastic, huge, glorious ideas that involve redoing the whole house or becoming an international media superstar or an international grassroots movement with t-shirts. And they have these visions that are beautiful, but then you're immediately overwhelmed of like, how would I even do that? How would I even start? And as my reach has grown and I've started teaching on LinkedIn Learning and hearing from more people that would not necessarily identify as multi-anything, but they've got the same thing. Every project they have, they think, well, but what if it's not perfect? Well, how do I even start? I don't know anything about that. Okay, good. But you've had the idea. You've had the download.
Can you repeat that, listeners? This is really important because we all get these. Say it again.
Don't refuse the download. What I mean is when you get those ideas that are like, boom, they're delivered like a package at the door. Like, here you go. Here's the whole thing. And sometimes they're really weird. They're like, okay, I don't know what just happened, but I now have an idea about a 3-volume novel set in ancient Greece. And you're like, I don't know anything about ancient Greece. I don't know how to write a novel. Doesn't matter. That idea picked you. And it is your job to get it out into the world.
I knew I was going to enjoy talking to you. This is like all my things. I want to just pause for a second and go a little deeper in this for the listeners, because I know on the Empowered Half Hour, we have a lot of dreamers. We also have a lot of high achievers. And sometimes those complement each other. And then sometimes they conflict. So a lot of high achievers have big dreams, but they get stuck in whatever lane they're in and just keep going. And the pause doesn't stop. And then some of the listeners are big dreamers, they're creatives and stuff like that. They're going for it, but they haven't learned how to monetize yet. So they kind of pull back. And so I know you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I know.
But I think that there's something really powerful to the 15 minutes a day, regardless kind of what bucket you fall in.
Yeah.
But what type of advice would you have, maybe if you want to just share more about what you've experienced using the 15-minute method and teaching it to other people, but how could it really help somebody?
Yeah, I mean, I think even logically we can get it that like, oh yeah, if I practiced guitar every day for 15 minutes a day, it would not be very long before I was a better guitar player. If I reached out to an old colleague once a day, it would not be very long before I had improved my network. I'd strengthened those connections. If I spent 15 minutes a day in prayer and meditation, every doctor and fitness instructor will tell you 15 minutes a day of stretching, dancing, running, playing, whatever is fine, awesome, great. In some ways better than 2 hours on the treadmill. It sort of makes sense to our logical brain a little bit. What doesn't make sense, and you don't see until you do it, We have a thing that I sell called the Daily Practicum. It's a subscription. People buy it. And every weekday, 12 noon Eastern, we get on Zoom, say hello, start the timer for 15 minutes. Everybody puts their heads down or turns off their camera. 15 minutes later, timer goes off, and they look up at me with this like post-orgasmic glow. It's like, oh my gosh, you won't believe what I just did. I had this giant pile of paper on my desk, and I reduced it by this much. I plotted out the back garden for next spring. I called that person that I've been putting off calling for 6 weeks. I'd been dreading it, and I just did it. And now it's done. Like, whatever it is, the elation, the sense of pride, and that little spillover, it's a little bit of like hair toss, that's right. I did it. And knowing that there's something like the practicum can really help if you want a little community around you, especially for the ADD, ADHD, neurospicy, that what they call body doubling or parallel play can be really, really helpful. But some people subscribe to the practicum, and then some people are there every day. Some people are there occasionally. Some people never show up at all, but just having it on their calendar reminds them to do it every day, whether or not they do it with the group. So it's super simple. It's super effective. And the cumulative effect over time,
yes,
it's just jaw-dropping.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because one of the things that I mentioned to you, that I work full-time senior salesperson at Cisco Systems, and I'm a published author and a keynote speaker, and I do all these things, and everyone's like, oh my God, how do you do it without burning yourself out? There's multiple things that I could say, but one of the things that I say is I do it an hour a day. And sometimes it is only 15 minutes, but I've been doing this for 4 years, and that cumulative effect, that's how I'm an author. That's like, just got picked up by a publisher recently.
Yay,
and
well done you.
Thank you. And everyone's like, how do you do it? I'm like, I do know. It was intentional. I sat down every day and I worked at my craft.
Right.
Some days sucked and I didn't get very much done. And other days were magical moments where there were breakthroughs, and I had that in my consciousness, like, oh, I have a new understanding of things. And then the next step revealed itself.
Exactly. And you've said so many important things here. I mean, how do you stay married? 15 minutes at a time. How do you parent a successful child? 15 minutes at a time. And we're not looking to make the perfect decision and say the perfect thing in every moment. We're just looking for the general trend to be forward. I mean, book writing's a great example. If you sit down for 15 minutes a day, you can write about 250 words if you don't edit yourself too much. Well, in 400 days, that's 50,000 words. That's a book.
Bingo.
But now, Becca, I have to ask you, because you've got a real job, which I've never had one of those. I've always been an actor and an entrepreneur and had a million different things going on at once. I've never had one of those, like, they pay you the same thing every 2 weeks sort of things. Because I have a fantasy, I have a dream of a revolution. I would like businesses to start offering people this 15 minutes a day. And here's why. Because I keep reading the statistic that 77% of employees are disengaged.
Oh, yes.
77%. Can you imagine if 3/4 of your family was disengaged? If 3/4 of your friends were disengaged? That's a lot.
It's a lot.
And that seems to me to be a very expensive problem.
Yes.
And I know that when I had, for the corporation, and I know that when I had gigs, I often felt like I was sort of leaving half of myself in the car. Like I wasn't really able to show up my full self. But if my business said, hey, okay, every day between 4:15 and 4:30, that's your 15 minutes. Or every day between 9:45 and 10, don't schedule any meetings, don't check your email, don't make your dentist appointment. This is not about your to-do list. This is about who you are as a person and what you want to be doing for you. It's 15 minutes. I mean, I think we can afford it, right? So knock yourself out. But here's the stealth effect. Not only do I think that would be a lovely gesture, but I also think, and have a nice effect for the people doing it. Like I said, people are amazed at the results of doing things for 15 minutes a day, especially the things that they can't get to at home and can't get to in the office. It's like, okay, look, here's a little pocket that you can get to it. And studies will back me up on this. If you show up at a meeting and ask people to introduce themselves, not just with their role, but also with something from their lives. So, hi, my name is Sam from sales, country from Sweden, when she was 17, and I have 3 cats. I will be more effective in that meeting. I will have better ideas. I will be a more innovative problem solver. I will feel more connected to myself. I will be more present. And Debbie down at the end of the table, whom I've never really cared for, all of a sudden she says, "Oh, I'm Debbie, blah, 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 blah," and I do needlepoint. And I'm like, I do needlepoint. I love needlepoint. No, thanks to show me your pattern. Right. And now all of a sudden we're needlepoint buddies. And now what is that? That's engagement.
Yes.
Now we are engaged with each other. And you can browbeat people with money all you want, and you'll get a certain amount. But people will do much more for each other.
1000%.
This is it. Everybody out there, go do it. Even just start stealth, like you and 2 friends or something. Just and then let me know how it goes.
It's so true. And there's a lot of corporations that are becoming more mindful and more willing to do things. I think the 15-minute method is a sweet spot for corporations because it is only 15 minutes, you know, when they're thinking of productivity and all the things that need to get done.
Right.
But 15 minutes is doable.
Yeah, exactly. There's not going to be terrible consequences from letting people spend 15 minutes designing their own coloring book or, you know.
One of the reasons I was excited to talk to you is because I very much am on a similar mission. In my career, I had a moment in time where I went through extreme burnout and got very, very ill. And I had to rebuild my entire life, myself, my family, my finances, everything. I almost lost it all. I was part of that 77%, and now I'm part of the 23. And so I'm very much like, hey guys, there's a different way to go about that is nourishing.
Yes.
For your soul, for yourself, for your family, for your future. I would say that the pausing that I do throughout the day, the 15 minutes, my morning rites, my mornings are my connection time to myself and to source and whatever. Anyway, I'm just personally reinforcing that I've experienced what you teach. And I also am like, hello, people. There's a different way.
So I've had long haul COVID for the last 2.5 years.
Oh, yeah. I've run into other people that have experienced that as well.
Right. So shout out to my brothers and sisters dealing with chronic unwellness. This book is really the proof in its own pudding because there were plenty of days where I couldn't get out of bed, where in fact even rolling over in bed seemed ambitious. And 15 minutes was really all I had to give. And to be willing to say to myself as a chronic overachiever, like to say like, okay, all right, 15 minutes. If that's what you can do, that's what you can do. And I will also say that staring at a blank piece of paper for 15 minutes is not the worst thing that ever happened to a person. I mean, when was the last time you sat still for 15 minutes without reaching for your phone?
It's a good question to the audience listeners. When was the last time you spent 15 minutes without your phone?
Just being there. It's summertime now. I keep thinking about those long road trips when I was a kid, you know, and those hours spent just staring out the window.
Now I would have entertainment.
Now kids have entertainment, but I think there's something about long hours of boredom that's sort of good for a person.
Yes,
and especially for the developing brain. I don't know.
No, I would.
I don't have children, so consequently, I'm a parenting expert. You can ask me anything, and I know.
You're like, I got this.
I got this.
No, but it's funny. Like my kids are they're in college, so they had their beginning years. The electronics weren't out yet, and then they were out their back half. And they say now, as young adults, that they would like to raise their children at least through age 7, 8 with minimal electronics, so that they learn how to play outside and interact with nature and all these
entertain yourself. That's what my grandmother used to say. I'm bored. She'd go, entertain yourself.
Yeah, figure something out.
Figure it out.
So, but I would love to ask you another question. So, what is a current aha or lesson that's up for you right now?
So I'm in book launch, which all entrepreneurial activities, all of life, really. It's just the list of things that should have been done this morning, that should have been done 3 days ago, that should have been done 3 years ago. It's endless. And again, I still have long haul, so my energy is not predictable. So for me, the lesson is about just surfing the moment. What can I do right now? How can I stay nourished in this moment right now? Can I get a little protein? Can I have a little snack? Can I drink a little water? What can I do to help nourish my body? But also just to be very real with myself that my old strategy of I'll just muscle through.
Yeah.
I'll just make this happen by sheer force of will. Like, okay, well, that strategy worked until it didn't. So new strategy. And I've been gobsmacked at.
Ooh, I like it.
Yes, I've been gobsmacked by how often I'm like, okay, clearly I'm done for the day. My list is not done for the day. The stuff that really has to happen isn't done for the day. But Seacrest out, I got to tap out. And so I go lay down, I go do whatever. And I'm amazed at how often that stuff just works itself out.
I want to double click on that for a second because I have a lot of A types that listen to the show. Control is a thing. And I'm an A type too, but something happens when you get really sick.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
You can't do it.
And so then you're forced to let go of control so that you keep your energy for the things that matter most. You let go of control because you have to. And then you realize, crap, I should have been doing this the whole freaking time.
Can you imagine? And the other people that have stepped up in my life, help I never thought was available is available. Things that I thought were so important to do, it turns out if they don't get done, no one cares.
Yeah, no big deal. You're like, who knew?
No big deal. Really? Because I spent 30 years torturing myself over that. Yeah,
I
no
realized so much of that myself.
Right.
So listeners know that very rarely do things fall apart when you let go, even though it sounds counterintuitive. I understand.
I might even reframe the story that things falling apart is a bad thing.
Yeah. Go on that more, like share more because I'm loving it.
I think we sometimes spend a lot of time and energy trying to keep things glued together and try to keep the facade, how are you? Fine. Try to keep the facade together, try to keep the house together, to just go, you know what? Forget it. It's fine. The house is messy. That's okay. Some people live in messy houses for a minute. Like,
it's okay.
It's okay. I didn't pick out the perfect birthday present for my best friend. You know what? She's my best friend. She's over it. It's fine. She doesn't care. I run these international leadership retreats for women. And last year we were in Crete, which was amazing and a lifelong dream for me. I was one of those super nerdy kids who was really into Greek myths and stuff. So I got to Greece and just wept. It was beautiful. On the way home, I missed my flight in Munich. I have never missed a flight in my life. And I was there. I just somehow didn't get on the plane. I still don't know how it happened. To this minute, I don't know how it happened. But you know what? I ended up rebooked on this much better flight. There were like 10 other things that fell out from that were so much better. And they only happened because I screwed up. I screwed up in a way that I never screw up. And look what got broken open. So I'm not saying go deliberately screw your life up, but I'm saying there might be some things that are already broken that you could just break all the way.
I love that because when I hit my most powerless moment, again, when you're sick and you need help, like you have to call in support, like life just changes. But what fell away was everything that really didn't serve me. And when I gained my strength, like the world was my oyster, really, not to be cheesy, but now there's all these new doors available to me. Guess what? I have choice. Guess what? I get to build the life that I love now. Wow, what a blessing this thing was that I thought destroyed me, really rebuilt me. So anyway, I was just like goosebumps, really resonating with what you're saying.
We hear over and over again that the study from the hospice patients, right? Who's the number one thing they say is, I wish I had spent more of my life focused on what mattered to me and less about trying to make everybody else happy. We know we don't actually have the power to make other people happy. I wish we did. That would be amazing. That would be great. But you don't. And do you really want to model for your children? Oh, the ideal parent sacrifices everything all the time and is exhausted and stressed out all the time. No, that's not the parent you want to model.
That was me.
Right? And some of what we're talking about, it honestly just happens naturally with age. Yeah. There's stuff that I lost my mind about in my 20s and 30s that now I'm like, oh, please.
Yeah,
please. I used to worry so much about, do I look okay? Do I look okay? And now I'm like, Sam, they're not tuning in for your beauty tips. You're fine. It's okay.
That is funny. So let's use this opportunity to pivot to another question within all of this. How could 15 minutes a day empower someone's life? We've touched on it, but I wanted to ask the question directly.
Yeah, I really want you to have the experience of 15 minutes a day in which no one else's agenda matters, in which you are not necessarily judging yourself or your output. I'm very happy with 15 minutes a day in which there is no, in fact, tangible outcome. I mean, I know people sometimes like to do it to write a book or clear out the garage even, and I can circle back on the clearing out the garage thing because I know people are like, you can't clear out the garage in 15 minutes. Yes, you can. And people are like, oh, I've got a million ideas. Great. Write them all down, pick one and do it, and pick another one tomorrow or do the same one. It hopscotches right over your perfectionism. It's 15 minutes. How perfect is it going to be? And you're going to do it again tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. Oh, but Sam, I only did it 3 times last week. Fantastic. That's 3 more times than you did it in the last 6 months. So be happy. And this garage thing, everybody's like, oh, I need 2 free weekends in a row. Really? Where on your calendar is that?
Yeah.
Because I don't have 2 free weekends in a row. I don't think
No.
you have 2 free weekends in a row. And if you did have 2 free weekends in a row, I doubt you would want to spend them cleaning out the garage. However, you can take a mug of tea or a cup of coffee or a can of beer out to the garage and sit there and contemplate it for 15 minutes. Just be there with it. Don't do anything, just be there with it. And at minute 7, you go, wait a minute, those 12 boxes are my brother's. Wait a minute. And now we call him up, Jeffrey, come get your boxes. And now half the garage is cleaned out and you didn't have to do a thing. I see this over and over and over again, right? When you just let yourself be with the issue, be with the problem, be with the unknowing, be with the mystery, and see what happens.
I love that. Be with the unknown, be with the mystery. It's beautiful. Dang, that was cool. So let me ask you one more question. Why are you passionate about this work?
Because we're going to die. Not to put too fine a point on it.
Yeah, no, but it's
that's
like,
really
wow,
it.
That's deep.
I have been fortunate enough to know a lot of really brilliant people. And many of them worked really hard to make sure they expressed their brilliance and expressed their talents and skills while they were here. So we have their books to remember them by. We have their art. We have their movies. We have their plays. We have their quilts. We have their recipes. We have the things that they made as expressions of their heart and their wisdom and their well-being. They've left for us. And I have friends who did not get their work out. And that breaks my heart.
You hit a really sensitive spot with me, but for a similar reason. And that is really the behind the scenes of my own work too. So just to share and to reinforce what you're saying for the listeners, the book that I have coming out in 90 days is called A Return to Radiance. And it is that call to return to the thing that most bubbles inside you, that sparkles inside you. And you don't have to monetize it, but please come back to it.
Yes.
Because I was born into a unique situation. My parents were full-time musicians when I was born. So I grew up seeing their radiance. I grew up with laughter and dancing and bongos and guitars and pianos and this and that. I just saw joy. And then as I got older, it was actually traumatizing in the sense that my parents got committed to their careers, stopped doing the thing that lit them up. And my mom passed away at 46.
Oh my goodness.
And my dad passed away at maybe he was 62. So I saw that at their deaths, they were not shining in the radiance. They were dim. And I can get emotional thinking about it, but I'm like, God, if I could just help people come back to the radiance, like you're saying, we're going to die. And not in a morbid way, but that's just the end game.
No, and I hear it's great. I mean, everybody who's died and come back says it's fantastic. So, I don't think it's anything to be afraid of.
But why not live in your sparkle or your joy?
Well, exactly. And I want to be very careful here because we never want to imply that anybody has ever lived their life wrong or not done it properly. Everybody lives their life in the exact right way. How do we know? Because it's the only way. It's what happened. So we have to bless that correct. We have to say, yes, that was the right path because it was the path. But one of the things I talk about in 15-Minute Method is returning to that zone of creative genius. And hat tip to Kay and Katie Hendricks for their work on zones of genius. But there's a thing that everyone has that you've always just been naturally interested in, naturally good at. You're a little fascinated by it. You watch all the documentaries. Your family and friends are like, wait, I'm sorry, you're driving how many hours to go to an exhibition on what?
Yes, exactly.
And you're like, no, I can't wait. So you're spending how much on what? Right?
You're obsessed with what?
With what? Okay. So whatever that thing is for you, it has to do with your zone of creative genius. It's part of what you're here for. So just lean into that a little bit. Give yourself the gift of that. And if you still don't know what it is, here's my little scenario. Imagine that someone wakes you up like at 3 a.m. A friend wakes you up at like 3 a.m. and goes, hey, Becca, we're going to go, ba. You want to come? And you would be like, oh, yeah. I'm coming. Wait, where's my shoes? Okay, here I come. Right?
Yeah, I don't even need my hair done. I'm just going to go.
No, I'm just going to go. I'm getting in the car. This is so exciting. What is that for you? And whatever it is, could you find 15 minutes for it today?
That is such a good way to close out because we are at 30 minutes. And I knew this time was just going to fly by. So, Sam, thank you for being a guest on the Empowered Half Hour.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
And guys, she has a book out. It's called The 15-Minute Method. We've been talking about it for 30 minutes, but imagine if you read it for just 15 minutes a day and then applied it, how much your life could change.
It is a little designed for that. The chapters are very short. They all have a little action step. It's light, but deep. Light and deep at the same time.
I started reading it, and that's why I was like, it's easy, but you have to do it. That's why I started off the conversation like that. I'm like, it's one of those like easy, hard things, but if you do it, then it's easy. But Sam, thank you so much for being a guest.
Oh, my pleasure. What a joy. Thank you so much for making this space.